I'm very curious if anybody else is applying to BU, if anybody's been admitted, congratulations. Any other high school seniors, congratulations on all your acceptances, very exciting. If anyone's specifically interested in BU, just let me know. I'd love to talk to you about it. At BU, I am majoring in economics and double minoring in business administration and management and international relations, which is quite a mouthful of different things, but it's really interesting. I get to learn a lot of cool stuff from a lot of cool different professors and areas and clubs and things like that. I'm also involved in a couple different clubs at school. So I'm involved in Alpha Phi Omega, which is the co-ed national community service fraternity. So we have about 150 members in that, and we get to do community service in a normal semester all around Boston, but recently we've been doing a lot of different educational events to sort of keep the service spirit up with COVID. I am also the co-founder and the vice president of the College Diabetes Network, the Boston University chapter. So if I have any other type 1 diabetics on the call, hello. Always nice to meet you guys. And I'm also a CAS Dean's Host, which is our College of Arts and Sciences at BU. So if you're looking at BU and you're especially interested in arts and sciences, let me know. I'm your girl. And also there's my LinkedIn. I can put it in the chat later if anybody wants to connect with me. Always good to sort of have connections, especially in econ and business. So I know you guys know a little bit about me, but I kind of wanted to test you a little, see what you guys are feeling. I put a little 2 truths and a lie. So if anybody, let me see if I can see the chat. Oh, I can't see the chat. Oh, great. Okay. If anybody wants to kind of just throw out a number there of what you think is a lie, a fun little icebreaker, if you will. All right, some 2s, lots of 2s. 1, 3. All right. The first one is a lie. I used to be a competitive Irish step dancer for about 10 years, and I've gotten to compete all over the world, which is really cool. And I did it for a little bit in college, but then COVID happened and we went remote. So it kind of took a backseat to a couple other different clubs and academics and things like that. But yeah, I used to be an Irish dancer for about 10 years, which is super cool. And I've also taught myself how to play a couple different instruments. I am not good at them, but I have taught myself how to play them, which I find really interesting. The mandolin was actually a quarantine hobby. So there you go. All right. So next we're going to talk a little bit about academics. So my college, well, actually, before I even get into that, does anybody have questions already so far? No? Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right, so my college application process, I applied to about 12 colleges, I think. I applied ED and EA to a couple of different schools, and I got into one that I wasn't super thrilled about, and I kind of had a panic attack that I wasn't going to get in anywhere. So at the last minute, I kind of stress applied to a couple other colleges. BU was on my original list, so I didn't even have to do that, but if you guys are stressed, don't be stressed. It's honestly, the process is very stressful, but you'll end up where you're meant to end up, and that's what's important. Why I chose BU, I applied mostly to campus schools. I did not think I wanted to be in a city at all. I am very close to New York City, and I think New York is really fun, but it's not somewhere where I'd want to live permanently. I do love my suburb that I'm from, so I wanted to sort of be on a campus for college, and then I went to accepted students days for a couple of colleges and completely changed my mind. And so I basically was between 2 different city schools, which if you guys are interested in what the other one is, it was GW in DC. And I ended up choosing BU because I really liked Boston, honestly. And I went to the Admitted Students Day and I absolutely love it. I fell in love with the spirit. I talked to a lot of really cool students there and they were really helpful. And I don't know, it kind of felt right. It was one of those very cliche moments. I know a lot of you guys don't get to do that with COVID this year, so I'm very sorry if you haven't stepped foot on your campus that you're going to be going to, but I promise it's all going to be worth it and very fun. So another kind of fun fact about me, I've changed my major so many times that I've honestly lost track at this point. And that's sort of the reason why I ended up with a double minor. I originally came into school accepted as a psychology major, and then I really wanted to switch to neuroscience, and then I switched to international relations, which is how I ended up as a minor. So I've taken classes in a lot of different areas, which is honestly a really cool thing. And it ended up just fulfilling my general distribution requirements and sort of college electives. So that's kind of cool early, which is really cool, even though I've changed my majors a bunch of times and I have a double minor. So it's kind of a cool thing. Some cool projects and research that I've gotten to work on as an econ major at BU. This past semester, I did a COVID-19 research project with my econometrics professor using Stata. Stata is a statistical platform, if anybody's ever had familiarity with it. It's really interesting to use. It's kind of easy once you get the hang of it. But that was really awesome. We got to look at a lot of different colleges, a lot of different resources, and sort of run a bunch of statistical tests on how frequency of testing and positive case rates are related. I won't go too much into it because there's a lot of details that aren't really that cool, but it was a cool project to work on and it was a really fun experience. I've also done a couple other research essays. One was on poverty and inequality, which was really cool. And another one that I actually did as an international relations minor was on military Keynesianism, which, to sort of sum that up, basically means spending lots of money during World War II pulled us out of the Great Depression, was kind of the gist of that. So that was really cool. I also had an internship while I was in school, which I will talk more about under job experiences. And that's kind of my academic experiences. So I see a couple questions in the chat, so I'm going to answer those now. So why am I graduating early? I came in with a lot of different AP credits. So I came in as a sophomore standing student. So I was already a year ahead, and then I kind of finished my major and my double minors, and then was like, well, I don't really kind of have anything else to do now. And BU is a very expensive school, and I didn't want to sort of take another fourth year to just like take classes that I wasn't particularly interested in, or to even add a third minor is kind of a lot. So I kind of just decided to end it on a happy note, and I'm very excited to be graduating early. I think it'll be a good experience, and I just accepted a job offer, so I'm very excited to sort of be starting a new chapter of my life after I graduate. What made me realize that I wanted to change my major a bunch of times? Yeah, great question. I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to school at all. So if you are in that boat right now, it is okay, and I promise it's okay. My sister was a psychology major, which is why I think I went in as a psych major. It was kind of the only thing I had exposure to at the time. I actually did take economics when I was in high school. I took AP macro and I thought it was really interesting, but never saw myself as an econ major. Don't know why, but somehow that changed. Yeah, I took a lot of different electives my freshman year, which is why I think I changed my major so many times, is because every time I took a class, I was really interested in it. So I took Intro to International Relations freshman year and was like, oh yeah, I really like this. Like, let me change my major to International Relations, and kind of did it that way. I honestly, yeah, I guess I was interested in a lot of different things. There's also a lot of logistical sort of things that go into it, of to switch into being a full-time business major student as a sophomore is really hard to do, at least at Boston University, which is why I added that as a minor instead of majoring in it. Econ was a lot less classes than the business program, which also had something to do with it. I hope that kind of answered that question, but honestly, just take electives. You'll find something you're interested in. And if you want to change your major, that's a-okay. Can you explain more about why you chose BU and if there's something you really liked about, or program you liked about it? Yeah, so when I was applying to BU, I thought I was going to go into psychology, and I really wanted to do research more specifically. And BU is a very research heavy sort of research institution school. I don't know, there's like some official name for, I think it's research institution. And I really liked all the opportunities that they have for research, which was one of the reasons that I was really attracted to it, which is kind of funny because I never really ended up doing psychology research there. But if you're interested in doing research, BU is a really great research school for a lot of STEM programs, especially. We have something called the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. It's called Europe. I might be butchering what the actual letters mean, but I believe it's something with research. And basically you can get paid to do research with professors, and it's really, really cool. And I thought that was awesome. And I really wanted to do some kind of research on the brain, which I never ended up doing, but that was part of the reason why I chose BU over the other schools. Sort of looking back on it now too, as an IR minor, GW was a really good school for both of those programs. And had I known that that's what I wanted to go into, I don't know what I would have done, but I am really happy that I chose BU. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Yeah, okay, so I don't think there's any more questions on that right now, but we can certainly come back to this later if you guys want to ask anything else. So to talk more about my work experience. So before I went to college, I've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of like odd jobs. I've just been working since I turned 16, I think, and I kind of just, I don't know, it was kind of just a fun thing for me to do. That was kind of like a hobby. If that's like a really weird thing to say, but it kind of was. So before I went to college, I worked a couple of different retail jobs in different clothing stores. And then my senior year of high school, I got an internship with my local police department. And that was a very, very cool experience. I actually got it kind of by accident. I applied to it and said, hi, I'm a rising senior. I'm really interested in working here. I know somebody else who had done an internship with them in college. And I basically just expressed my interest and they were like, yeah, okay. And when I said I was a rising senior, they thought I meant college, not high school. So I showed up to fill out paperwork as a 18-year-old, 17-year-old. And they thought I was going to be like 21, but I wasn't. So kind of a funny story with that, but it ended up working out really well. So I interned with them over the summer, and then I sort of showed them my work ethic and how interested I was in it. So they actually kept me on as a paid part-time employee throughout senior year, which was really, really cool. That was just such an awesome experience. I got to learn so many things there. And it was also kind of something I could talk about on my college applications, which, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, that's a big thing to have, like extracurriculars and jobs in your college apps. But it was a really interesting internship and experience. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I was interested in doing international relations, more specifically like social justice law kind of justice things. So yeah, that was sort of my pre-college work experience. At college, I was a waitress for my undergraduate years. And I also had a couple like odd jobs. So I worked as an assistant to a psychologist, sort of doing just like administrative stuff, filing, sort of nothing that interesting. But at that point, I thought I was going to be like a psych major and doing psychology research. So I thought it was a really cool thing at the time. But I was basically just an assistant. It wasn't anything that crazy. And then my second year at school, sophomore/junior year, it's kind of confusing with the graduating early thing, but my second year, I got a business internship at a law firm that's based in Boston. And that was through one of the classes that I was taking. It was a class on sort of entrepreneurship. And so they basically partnered us with different companies based on what our interests were. And as an econ major, I got placed as a business intern, which was kind of cool. And this was a really interesting experience because I knew absolutely nothing about law going into this, other than that I was somewhat interested in it from the police department, but I knew like none of the legal words, none of the legal processes. But basically, to talk more about that, Vicente Cedarberg is a cannabis law firm. And so a lot of what they do is helping their clients who are trying to build businesses in cannabis. They're helping their clients get different loans to support them in starting their business. When you are trying to do that in cannabis, you can't get funding from banks because it's federally illegal to have cannabis or grow cannabis. So it's kind of tricky with like the federal and state laws, but basically they're just trying to help business entrepreneurs in cannabis get loans. So I was helping to create a couple of different templates to help their clients do that. So it was a really cool internship. I'm not that interested in law anymore, but it was a good internship to have. It was a good experience. I learned that I don't like law as much as I thought I did, which is something that's really important to know. It's honestly sometimes more important to know what you don't like than what you do like. So keep that in mind as you're like taking classes and everything in school. So this past year, I've had actually 2 different part-time jobs. I was a marketing assistant with a real estate company. If you guys are familiar with Compass, that's like the major company. It's the same as Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, things like that, Likert. And I was working specifically with a group called the Rosenbaum Group, and we were just 4 people. We're a very small group, but it's a really cool opportunity to learn more about marketing. I do a lot of the social media, some website work, various administrative things as they happen, different projects. We run a house tour when COVID isn't happening, which is cool. I've worked on that in the past with her. I've known her for a while, so it was sort of like a family friend job. But that's okay. Employers don't need to know that. You just have to say like, oh, I was a marketing specialist for this real estate company. So a lot of it's how you share those experiences, if you get what I'm saying. Anyways, my most recent job, I started in December with a company called EI Research, which is a very new company. They are a research subsidiary of a larger company. So they're sort of the research department of a consulting group that's based back in Boston. So that's been all remote, which is honestly, it's still been really fun. I really like working there. And as a junior research associate, I am researching different soft skills and learning how to apply them in the workplace, in education, at different companies, things like that. And our hope is that we're going to get a curriculum up and running very, very soon and start getting clients to deliver those workshops to. So doing things like orientation or retreats or weekend sort of workshops with companies or schools. So that was a lot. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but I don't see any in the chat right now. So I'm going to move on, but we can certainly go back to it. My job search now. So to start, I'm going to talk about COVID a little bit because COVID has definitely made things a lot harder. And my job search has been a very hard and long process. I've been applying to jobs since pretty much September. But I don't want this to discourage anybody. This is like the worst labor market since 2008 when we had the financial crash in 2008. So don't like be discouraged about trying to find a job after college. It's probably not this hard in a normal year. And a lot of companies are laying people off, going on hiring freezes, things like that. So a different year for sure. So just kind of wanted to preface with that. And sort of an additional word on that is I had an internship my rising senior year summer, which is like sort of the important year to get an internship. Usually, especially in business, you try to get an internship before your senior year. And the hope is that they really like you and they hire you back and give you a full-time offer. So that was kind of what I was hoping for. It was with a data analytics company and I really, really liked them, but the internship got canceled because of COVID, which was really sad. And yeah, but so I think that also makes things a little harder too, especially considering applying to jobs and not really having work experience in the data analytics field, but then applying to data analytics jobs gets kind of tricky. But so that's kind of just, that goes along with the COVID preface, I think. So anyways, moving more into the actual job search, it was a really, really long process. I've been applying to jobs since September. I used to write down everything that I applied to. I had a spreadsheet and it got about, I think, 200 jobs long. And then I just gave up on updating it because it was just such a pain in the butt. I think now, honestly, I've applied to a couple hundred jobs. Like, I'm going to be really honest with you guys and transparent. I've applied to a lot of jobs. I've done a ton of interviews and it's been really hard. There's a lot of ones that I've been really excited about. And I've talked to people in the company and then they've been like, oh, we're on a hiring freeze. Like, or, you know, we're laying people off right now. And yeah, so that basically means you're not going to get hired there, which is really disappointing because there was a couple companies that I really liked. Sort of going along with that, a lot of companies do things like case studies, presentations, projects, tests, which is very time consuming, but they're really fun. And they sort of give you an insight onto what the job would be like. So for the job offer that I just accepted, I did a presentation for them and I got to sort of realize like, okay, yeah, this is something I would want to do as a career. Like I really enjoy doing this. So it's good and it's bad at the same time. It's really time consuming, but it can be really fun and interesting. So with that, I have recently accepted a job offer and I am an analyst in quantitative research with MarketCast. And MarketCast is a market research data analytics company that works with entertainment and sports. So it's really cool. And I'm hoping that I get to work with a lot of cool clients. Thank you, Lena. This was just a quote from their website. It's a research and analytics team for today's ever-changing media landscape. So that's kind of cool. I'm really looking forward to that. I start in May, so in about 2 months. And yeah, so I'm really excited for that. So there's sort of a light at the end of every tunnel kind of thing. One door closes, another opens, kind of got to stay optimistic when going through a really long application process. So I included some more information about MarketCast here if anyone's interested. You can also look at their website. It's a cool website. And then these are some of the companies that they've worked with in the past that would be really cool to work on. If anybody's interested in sports, they do a lot of stuff with sports, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, and a lot of different entertainment things, HBO, Disney, Hulu. It's a really cool company and I'm really excited. And I'm really glad that I got the offer before doing this, because when I accepted this, I really thought that I was going to get an offer from another company. And then they were on a hiring freeze and I didn't get the offer. So I'm excited that I get to at least share that with you guys and be able to talk more about actually accepting offers and things like that. Yeah. So I will move on to talking about jobs more generally. With Econ, I've applied to probably every single area that is on this screen right now, so I can talk more about my experiences in that. I'm going to start with government because Econ, and especially paired with international relations, government is a really big sector that you can go into. I personally applied to a ton of jobs within the government. You can do that at a federal level or a local level, which is really cool. And so the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, I've applied to all three of those. I didn't get an interview at any of them, but that's okay. They're all really interesting places to look at for sure. There's a lot of opportunities for recent graduates with the government, which is cool. And if anyone's looking for internships, they do a ton of internships too. But the government, out of probably anyone else on the screen, takes the longest in their application and recruitment process. So if it's something you're interested, definitely look up what the deadlines are, because they're probably like in the fall semester, way before you would even start thinking about this kind of thing. So definitely sort of keep that on your radar if this is something you're interested in. The FBI, I know specifically, does really, really good internships for college students and I think high school students, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it, but I think. And then USA Jobs is basically LinkedIn, but for government jobs. So if anyone's interested in doing anything within the government, that's a really great resource to use. They're all there on the same page and you can kind of scroll through them that way. I will also add, from a personal perspective and a personal standpoint, that government jobs prefer veterans over non-veterans. So if you're interested in doing ROTC at school, that would also be a really great way to get involved with the government and sort of boost your chances to get a job. But also, like, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. So don't just do that for the sake of a job. But just sort of want to put that little tidbit out there. Okay, moving on. Market research, data analytics, and research is a really big area that you can go into with Econ as well. I put MarketCast up there because MarketCast is market research. And then Verisk is like a software data analytics company. They're a pretty big one. And then there's also a lot of different data data visualization softwares that people really want applicants that have experience in those. So that includes Tableau, Power BI, even Excel. So I put Tableau up there just to sort of remind me to talk about data visualization, but that's another big one. If you're interested in doing data analytics, data visualization goes along very hand in hand with it. And then in terms of research, there's a lot of economic research companies that you can try to get a job with, but most of them will want you to have a master's degree or a PhD. So it might not be something that you'd be looking at as an entry-level job, but it's a good thing to sort of have on your radar anyway. The National Bureau of Economic Research comes to my mind immediately because they are based in Boston and I have a ton of professors that work there. So kind of just a cool thing. That's another reason why I really liked Boston, which I didn't know when I applied there, but I know now as an econ student, they have a lot of economic related companies and institutions there. So that's kind of something to keep in mind too. Okay, moving on. Consulting is a really big thing for econ majors. You have a lot of unique skills as an econ major. It is a social science, so you learn a lot about analytics, but also people, which puts you in a really good position for consulting. So those are just some of like the companies that you might have heard of within consulting: KPMG, IBM, the Boston Consulting Group is a big one, especially in Boston. But those companies are everywhere. So no matter where you guys are located, they probably have offices there. They do all tend to be international companies, so that's kind of cool. Sort of going along with that, international economics, if it's a class you can take, if it's a specialization you can take, that's really critical right now, especially with globalization and everything. So that's something you could also keep in mind. Anyways, moving on to healthcare. Healthcare economics is a really, really big field that I didn't even know was a thing until I was a college student. I know a lot of people who are econ majors who are also pre-med, which is kind of an interesting combination, but it makes a lot of sense when you consider how many pharmaceutical and insurance companies there are. So these are just a couple, if you guys want to sort of take a look at the names there. Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna are all the big ones that I'm sure we've all heard of right now. But healthcare is a really big field if anybody's interested in that. Another sort of thing I will say about that, more from a personal perspective, is that if you are interested in things, employers like to see that you're interested in them, like on an actual resume. So if you have or can get work experience in any of these fields, if it's something you're interested in, that would be ideal. It also kind of would let you know if you don't want to actually work there, which is really important. But having the work experience in it would definitely help you in getting a job in it later. And especially with healthcare, that's something, if you can be pre-health or pre-med in college, that would also give you a really good background to work in companies that are in healthcare, if that makes sense. Yeah, so kind of just being strategic with that. I'll move on to law and policy. Sort of the big one that I thought of here was the United Nations and a lot of other sort of NGOs or non-government organizations, a lot of nonprofits, or in general, just law firms. Sort of lumped in with that is financial law, which they like econ majors a lot as well. I actually interviewed for a job at a company like that. I wasn't super interested in it, but that's okay. It's still an option. Moving on, we have finance and accounting, which econ is not business, which I will say they're not the same thing. You will learn very different things in each. And if you specifically want to go into finance and accounting, it is definitely better to major in finance or accounting. But having an econ background will make you a unique applicant. It sort of depends on the company if they would want to hire you with or without coursework in finance and accounting. But it is an area that a lot of economics majors go into. Sort of piggybacking off of that, a lot of econ majors will then go on to get an MBA, and then after an MBA, go and work in things like finance and accounting. So it's definitely sort of a related field. Going off of that, there's also credit, financial data, and policy analysts, which credit analysts are typically a lot of econ majors and econ people. And that would work mostly with sort of like banks, mortgage companies, things like that. You also have pretty much anything in data or anything analytics related is really, really great for econ majors. You learn a ton of that in school. You learn a lot about modeling, graphing, math, calculus, a lot of things like that. So it puts you in a really good position for analytical jobs. I think honestly, if you just Googled analytical jobs and scrolled through LinkedIn or any other job site, you would probably see econ listed as a major on a lot of them. So that's definitely a really interesting sort of field you could go into. I have personally applied to a lot of jobs in data analytics, a couple in policy, but mostly data. Policy also kind of goes back to government jobs, a lot of sort of things related there. Lastly, you can go into education. You could be a teacher, you could be a professor. You could also go to grad school. So that's another really popular thing for economics majors to do. An economist job is not an entry-level job by any means. So to be an actual economist as a job, you would most likely have to have a PhD. So that's sort of something to keep in mind. If that's like the exact title you want in a company, we're probably talking PhD there. But you can get a lot of really great entry-level jobs as an econ major, and a lot of companies do tuition assistance so that, for example, they might give you $10,000, or I had one company I interviewed with where they had $20,000, which is really on the higher end. But they'll give you money per year if you want to go and get an MBA part-time, a master's part-time, things like that. So a lot of people in business and econ tend to do that. They'll get an entry-level job out of college and then go back to school part-time while they're working and have their company help pay for school. So that's sort of an overview of econ. As you can tell, there's a ton of different things you can go into within econ. Honestly, econ is such a versatile major, but if there's something really specific that you're specifically interested in, I would definitely try to focus more on that. So if you're really interested in government, adding things like poli-sci or international relations would be a really good combination with econ. If you're interested in finance and accounting, adding business into that. Yeah, I guess that would sort of be my gist on jobs in the econ field. If anyone has questions on that, I would love to take them. I could try to answer them as best as I can, and I could talk more about like my personal experiences applying to different companies like this, if anyone's interested in that too. Yeah, I guess now we're just kind of open to questions, which you guys can either unmute or you can put them in the chat. And I will stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to. So I consider Questrom, yes. Well, no. Let me readjust that question. When I was applying to BU, no. When I was in BU, yes. When I was applying to colleges, I applied everywhere, I think, as a psychology major. And I really didn't think I wanted to do business at all. But then when I got to school, I guess sort of to give a more long-winded answer on this, as an international relations major at BU, you have to choose tracks. And so early on, freshman year, I was an international relations major on a business track, which the business classes were actually all economics classes. So I don't know why they called it a business track and not an economics track, but anyways. So that kind of is what sparked my interest in changing from an IR major to an econ major, was because I had to take econ classes for that. And then business tied very heavily into that. And then as I was taking econ courses, I was interested in learning more about business things and sort of was thinking I would want to get into some type of business related things after school. So that's why I ended up adding a business minor. Questrom is a really great option though. I will say it because I'm proud to say it. Econ at BU is ranked higher than Questrom is. So I'll put that out there too. How many AP classes did I take in high school? I took 7, I think 7. Not all, I got credit for all of them when I went to college, but not all of them transfer as class credits, if that makes sense. So like, for example, I took AP literature and AP language, but I still had to take like BU's writing classes, but I still got credit for it. Yeah. Is an economics major a good alternative to majoring in business? That's a really interesting question. And I think it really depends what you want to do. If you know now that you want to be in finance, major in finance, or business with a concentration in finance, or however your school is set up for that. Econ definitely is a really unique perspective when you're applying for jobs like that. And some employers will really like that, but a lot of employers will say, oh, you don't have the coursework in it, and kind of be wary about your application. So if you are interested in business, but you want to do econ, some other alternatives would be doing a business minor or getting involved in clubs at school that are related to business, which there's a ton of. There's also a business fraternity, a co-ed business fraternity. I forget what the name is, but it's very popular. It's probably on every campus. So that's a really good way to sort of get experience in that too, which would make you a really good competitive applicant if you're applying to business careers. Am I planning to go to grad school? Yes, I want to go to grad school. Do I know in what? No. There's a couple of different options that I'm considering. Obviously, a master's in econ or a PhD in econ, but I kind of don't want to go to school for 7 years. So maybe not a PhD, but I'm also kind of considering it. It's a weird thing. Definitely considering an MBA and also considering a master's in data analytics or data science. My current job as a quantitative research analyst is very data-based. So I think as of right now, I'd probably lean more towards either an MBA or a master's in data analytics, but honestly, I don't know for sure now. And if I don't know for sure, I don't want to spend the money to go and get the degree if it's not something I'm like 100% sure that I want to do, if that makes sense. So yes, eventually I do want to go back to school. I will most likely go back to school part-time while I'm working, either in an MBA or a data analytics master's or an econ master's. Still kind of figuring it out, and that's okay. Okay. Do you think starting a business would be a good addition to an economics or business major? Yeah, if you can start a business, absolutely. That is so cool. I don't know in what, but I'm very curious. So if you want to send me a message on that, I would love to learn more about what business you want to start. But I think that would give you a really, really good, unique perspective on business. So I definitely think that that's a good addition to an econ or business major for sure. It gives you a lot of experience hands-on. What is club culture like at BU? I'm assuming you mean like student organizations kind of. There are like 500 that you could choose from. There are so many. Freshman year at our career fair, not our career fair, our club fair, I signed up for like 30 clubs or something. The highlights were knitting, jujitsu, my Irish dance club that I joined, my service fraternity that I'm in. What else? I don't even know. I applied for oh my gosh. I signed up for a ton of different jobs at BU. I've sort of narrowed it down since my first semester freshman year on which jobs I really wanted to jobs. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm in the headspace of jobs right now. Which clubs I really wanted to do. So that's kind of how I ended up working more specifically in the 3 clubs that I'm in now. And I've had a couple different leadership positions within the clubs that I've been in. So I've been treasurer and membership vice president of my fraternity, and then vice president of the College Diabetes Network. And so those are kind of cool clubs that you could be involved in. There's honestly, I guarantee you there's something for everyone, especially at BU, but I'm sure at a lot of other colleges as well. I'm sure there's a ton of clubs that you guys could get involved with. How did you discern that economics is for you? Good question. So I think what really made me decide I wanted to do econ was that it was closely related to psychology, but also not psychology, if that makes sense. So it was also related to like social sciences and how people make decisions and things like that. But it was more focused in data and like not hands-on, but like, I don't know how to describe this. I don't know. In my head, it just made more sense to me than psychology did. For me, psychology is one of those things where a lot of it seems really intuitive, and then you sort of do studies to prove or disprove what your intuition was, if that makes sense. So econ was a way for me to more so look at data, which I really liked. Does the difference between a BA and a BS in economics really matter? No, absolutely not. It honestly, the only reason why there's a difference there is because it's just how schools do their things. My friend group always jokes that we are like 5 different STEM majors between like health sciences, neuroscience, econ, a lot of different majors like that. And we all got bachelors of arts within the College of Arts and Sciences. But our friend who was in the College of Communications got a Bachelor of Science in Communications. So it really doesn't make a difference. It's honestly just one of those things where colleges, I don't know. But it really doesn't make a difference. For a career in data analytics, do you recommend a minor in comp sci with econ or a business major? I really wish that I took comp sci in college. I think it would have been a great addition because a lot of data analytics jobs want you to know R, Python, SQL, Excel, Stata, SPSS, a lot of different softwares that I wish I had more hands-on experience with doing in a school setting. I would also say that the way the labor market and sort of the industry sectors are going now is that a lot of it is getting focused in technology and computer science and analytics. So I think comp sci is definitely a really great thing to have under your belt, especially with econ. That's a very popular pairing, either econ and comp sci or econ and stats. I personally never took a comp sci class, but I did the LinkedIn learning courses in R, Python, SQL, all that stuff. So I was able to sort of talk about that in job interviews, which I think was really, really helpful, especially because I was applying to a lot of data analytics jobs. So I hope that makes sense. Does BU offer sports scholarships? I think they do if you're on like not club teams. I don't know what they're called if they're not a club team, but like I think we're Division 1. I honestly don't even know. But if you're on like the BU hockey team, I think you get a sports scholarship. But if you're on the club team, you wouldn't. But that would be something you could probably email BU about to ask them. What kind of extracurriculars do you recommend for business/econ major? First of all, anything you're interested in. You don't want everything to just always be about academics and a career. You want to do things that are going to make you happy and have fun. So that for me, that was my community service fraternity. I really loved meeting all the people there and getting to basically travel around Boston and do a couple really cool different services. One of the ones that we do is we work with the Bruins to do fundraising events at their games. So that's like really, really cool. Other than that, if we're talking more in the sense of like academic and career related extracurriculars, also anything you're interested in within the scope of a career. So like if you're interested in doing data analytics, there's most likely a data analytics club. And then that would be something that you could do to learn more about. A couple off the top of my head that I can talk about is we have an economics association, a women's economic association, her network for women in business, like a finance club, an investing club. And those are all really, really great ways to also learn skills that you wouldn't necessarily learn otherwise. So especially if you're not actually a business major or minor, if you join a business club, you will still learn how to do things like Excel and financial modeling. So that's really cool. I would definitely recommend doing a couple different clubs. Honestly, sign up for everything that you can, go to different meetings and see what interests you and kind of go from there. Okay. As you are interested in psychology, did you consider behavioral economics? Is it an option or concentration available? So I did consider this, but it is not a thing at BU. So it would be something that I would have to specialize in as a master's or PhD, I guess. The way BU is set up is we have an econ major, and then we have a combined major of economics and math. And then we have a BA MA program, which you can do in 5 years to graduate with a master's in econ, but that's like our only econ thing. So we don't have like international economics or behavioral economics or things like that. I believe we do have a behavioral economics elective that you can take as part of your major, but it wouldn't be like a concentration or anything. Email and contact, yes, absolutely. I will do that at the end when I wrap up answering questions. Did you do any summer programs? No, but I did have like summer jobs, but do you mean like academic summer programs? Because then no. The only things I've ever done in the summer is like work, either as a waitress or in like a part-time job. What does my coursework, I'm sorry, I cannot talk today. What does your coursework look like, specifically those senior thesis papers? I am not doing a senior thesis paper. Thesis papers would be mostly if you're a PhD. If you are doing an honors in your major, I think then there's like some sort of project or something you would have to do on top of your regular coursework, but I'm not doing an honors in econ. So I just have like a regular schedule this semester. I'm taking 2 econ classes. I'm taking labor economics and I'm taking economics and historical perspectives, which talks a lot about like, well, right now we're talking about the Great Depression. So that's kind of an example for you. And then my 2 other electives that I'm taking for fun are just 2 English classes. So I'm taking playwriting and Asian American literature, which is really cool. And my course load this semester is kind of light, but I did that on purpose because I'm a second semester senior. Yeah, does anybody else have any other questions? I will put my contact information here. That is my LinkedIn. This is my email. Email and contact, yeah. Okay. I'll put my Instagram down if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram. Why not, right? Yeah, does anybody have any other questions? My thoughts on crypto to the moon. I did not invest in any of that stuff. I do have my own personal investments. I invest in ETFs. I think they're a much safer option. That's all I'm gonna say on that. But I do power to the people. I ask every guest this. I'm sorry. Oh my God, no worries. Sort of my stance on it is power to the people. Finance is for everyone. It's not for big companies or people with lots of money. So go GameStop. Yes, Emily. I'm kind of curious now if nobody else has questions for me. Is anybody looking at BU? Yes, exciting. Now I am. Oh my gosh, no way. Question. Yes. If you guys have any questions, seriously, like email me. I got you. As I said before, I'm a CAS Dean Toe. So specifically if you're looking within CAS, I like any CAS resource you would want or need, or any majors or minors within CAS. I have done a lot of extensive training on it. So I'd be happy to answer questions. If there's a lot of you that are interested in BU, I would even, if you guys want to set up like a Zoom call or something, I could talk to you guys about that. Yeah, I get that. There's a lot of schools in New York though. There's a ton of schools in New York. Virtual sessions. Yeah, I'm like really sorry that you guys can't come to campus. That makes me so sad. I don't do tap dancing. I do Irish step dancing. There's a difference. How I got into it, me and my sister went to a river dance show and we're like dancing in the aisles of the show, and we thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So then my mom signed us up for dance classes, and that rest was kind of history. And I'm also Irish, so that was kind of a big part of it. Any accepted seniors here? Where are you guys going? Want to know. Yeah, I definitely get that, Kimber, for sure. It is a little far away from my home too. I'm from New Jersey, so it's about 4 hours driving distance to BU. I didn't really get that homesick. I miss home for sure, but like, I don't know. I honestly, once I got to school, it was just so much fun being able to meet people. And yeah, Arkansas is a long way. Yes, it's a lot further than New Jersey. Also, kind of on that note, for anybody who hasn't been on BU's campus, if you guys want to see pictures or anything, I can send you pictures of like ones that I have in my camera album. Any tips for international students? Ooh, more specifically, what are you asking, Sam? Congratulations. Yay, that's so exciting. Does anyone else have any other questions? You guys can ask me like honestly anything. College, jobs, econ. Tips for what to put on a college app to make it better. Okay, let's see. So there's a lot of different aspects of the college apps. If you did take standardized testing, which I don't know how that worked at all with COVID, but if you guys did take standardized testing, if you did well and it's optional, I would still submit it. And I would keep in mind that applications are very holistic. So if you're applying to places that you think are out of your range academically, still apply anyway, because you never know. They might see something that really interests them on your application. You might have really good extracurriculars. You might have a really good essay. So definitely apply to places that you find interesting. Other tips, have somebody read what you wrote. Like I had my mom and a friend read all of my essays just to make sure things made sense. Also, if you're interested in colleges that have essays, like, for example, BU has one that's YBU. I'm sure a lot of other colleges have similar essays. Reach out to students and ask them what their experiences have been like, what they like about the college, because that'll give you a really, really specific answer that you could give instead of, oh, research or Boston, it'll give you good things to talk about. How did you become a second senior? How did become a second senior standing? I'm not sure what it's called, but I believe is what you said. Yeah, so I came into school as in sophomore standing, which means as a freshman, I had enough credits to be considered a sophomore. And that's sort of how I'm graduating early. I think the biggest thing with graduating early is having enough credits. You need like 144 credits or something, which is 4 years worth of school. So you would have to have APs or IBs or things like that to have that credit. So the reason why I came in as a sophomore standing student was because I had AP credits. What schools did I want to go to other than BU? Yeah, I applied to a lot of different schools. Like I said, a lot of campus schools because I thought that's what I wanted. And then I kind of changed my mind when I went to Admitted Students Day. I would say my big three that I was looking at after I'd been accepted places was BU, GW in DC, and then Colgate in New York. And Colgate is a really big campus school, and I really wanted a city school, which is why I kind of didn't choose Colgate. And then BU over GW, I thought the academics at BU were a little better, and I liked the city better. So that's kind of how I chose BU over the other schools that I was looking at. What schools did I want to go to other than BU? To be honest with you guys, I did early decision to Cornell, and I got deferred when they like put you in the regular pool instead of the ED pool. I got whatever that word is. I think it's deferred. And then I think I got waitlisted, and then I pulled my application out when I accepted BU. How did I adapt to living in a big city like Boston? Yeah, so BU is in Boston, but it's definitely a campus. So we are about like a 2-mile stretch of Boston. And within that 2-mile stretch, it is students and students only. Like you will not see other things that are like Boston-y. So it still feels kind of like a campus. So that was definitely really helpful in adapting to living in Boston and in a big city. Before I left for COVID, I had an apartment in South Campus of BU, which is more the city and less the BU's campus. So that was kind of an adjustment, getting used to that. But I feel like it's something you kind of just get used to as you live through it, if that makes sense. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but you definitely get used to it very quickly. I'm going to skip Emily's question right now and go to Rebecca's. How are the winters in Boston compared to New Jersey and New York? Honestly, pretty similar, except Boston is very windy, which makes it feel a lot colder sometimes. So you definitely need like a good coat. But it's not that much worse than New Jersey or New York. I actually think New Jersey got more snow this year than Boston did. So that kind of ties back into adapting to living in a big city, and especially Boston, is weather. I know a lot of people who aren't from the Northeast who had never seen snow before, and it was like a crazy shock when it started snowing and we had a snowstorm. So I guess weather is something to consider too. And then what are the professors like at BU? There are a ton of professors at BU. I've gotten close to a couple of mine, especially my freshman writing professor. I absolutely adored her, and we got along so well. And I miss her so much because I'm not on campus right now, but I still keep in contact with her over email sometimes, which is really nice. I had a absolutely fantastic professor from the International Relations Department who I adored. The professors are all very, very accomplished people. So honestly, like they're all kind of cool. They've all done something really cool. A lot of the international relations professors, especially, are like ex-CIA people, which is like awesome. And it's so cool to get to talk to them about their jobs. Most of the econ professors work with a lot of different research, either companies outside of Boston or doing research in Boston. So if you're interested in research, you can always ask your professors, which is really nice. What are your thoughts on the ethical dilemmas with all the recent big data chaos? I actually don't know what you mean by that. I don't think I Can you elaborate on that? I don't think I know what that is. You're welcome, Emily. Guys, keep asking questions. This is great. This is really awesome. I was worried nobody was going to ask me questions, but this is good. I'm glad you guys are doing this. And I'm getting LinkedIn connection requests as I'm sitting here. Awesome. Oh, privacy issues. Yeah, that's... Do I think it's ethical? Like, no. But I think it's inevitable at the stage that we're at right now. So that's like a really complicated question because, I mean, everything is recorded these days and everything's on the cloud and everything. And I mean, that's like a hard question because I mean, it's, you can't get away from it. So like, yeah. There are so many study abroad opportunities at BU. I personally didn't study abroad. That was part of one of the cons of graduating early. Bye, Noor. Thank you so much for coming. Back to study abroad. Yes, there's a ton of study abroad opportunities. If I had stayed a fourth year, I definitely would have tried to study abroad, but COVID would have messed that up. So there's that. But there are a ton of study abroad opportunities. You can honestly go like anywhere. There's even study abroad opportunities within the US, which I guess it's not really a study abroad, but they're still considered study abroads. There's a lot in DC, California, a lot of things like that around like the big cities in the US that you can do study abroads too if you don't want to go international. So that's an option. There's like a whole website where you can look at the study abroad programs if you're interested in BU and looking at study abroad. Does BU have a poli-sci major? Yes. They have a poli-sci major and an international relations major. So you kind of have two options to pick from there. How did you prepare for college applications and how did you do research? Yeah. I had an older sister who went to college before I did. So I had seen a lot of colleges before I had even started my application process. So that's definitely helpful if you can tour, which obviously right now you kind of can't. Other than that, honestly, talking to students is like the best way to do it. If you know people from your high school that went to colleges, reach out to them. Reach out to me if you're interested in BU. Honestly, like go on Reddit pages for colleges and read what people have to say. Things like that. I would definitely reach out to students 100%. That is like the best way to do research on knowing if you want to go to that college. Ask about resources, ask about your major, ask about clubs, ask about things like that. Colleges are doing virtual tours. Awesome. Definitely do that if you guys can. Also, YouTube. YouTube is great for looking at colleges because people will do vlogs and stuff, and it's a really great way to sort of see campus without actually going on campus. Do BU professors accept high school research assistants? So I mentioned before Europe, which is our research program at BU where they will pay you to do research. That is like only for BU students, which most BU professors will go through there to get other BU students to do research with them. But I don't want to say no to this question because I think if you reached out to a professor more specifically and said, hey, I saw you were doing this research, can I join in on it? They would probably just do it on a case-by-case basis, but definitely be proactive and ask. It never hurts to ask. Sort of going along with that too, especially in the future, if you guys have the opportunity to go on campus, probably in the fall, like next year, like you can sit in on classes. Like you can email a professor and ask to sit in, or if you're talking to a student, ask the student if they can take you to class. And that's like a really good way to see campus too. Best advice for choosing the right college or university? There's a ton of things that go into that question. Oh my gosh. Honestly, to be really honest with you guys, I think majority of people would be happy on almost any college campus just because like you can find something that interests you almost anywhere. the biggest thing I would say that makes a difference in that is if they have the program that you want to go into. So if they have an econ program, if they have business, if they have things like that, some schools don't have that, especially if they're smaller. So I guess if you know what you want to do, try to research schools that excel at that have research in it, have opportunities in it, that have alumni networks, things like that. Otherwise, it's kind of just where you feel the most comfortable going, which could mean, the size, the location. There's a lot that goes into that. That's a very personal question. Honestly, I went with a vibe check. I went where I felt that I would feel most comfortable in and where I thought was like the best. How do you find college students / mentors? Yeah, so a lot of colleges in general will have versions of dean's hosts or admissions ambassadors or things like that. If most of the time you can find a list of them online, which I can put BU's list, which I'm on. You guys will see me on it. I think they have my graduation year wrong though, but that's okay. Oh, hang on, that's not the right link. But if you find resources like this online, I mean, these are people who signed up and were vetted through a very rigorous process to be able to talk about BU and their resources and their experiences. So that's a really great way to meet different college students and mentors within respective colleges. So that's like BU's, but I'm sure a lot of other colleges have the same resources. What type of research can you do in the economic or business field? You can do a ton of things. Some of the ones I've looked at was we have a financial economics professor at BU who teaches in the econ department, and he'll do some econ classes on sort of financial markets and everything. And he does a lot of research, especially on like the 2008 financial crisis. So that's kind of an example of what you could do. Within business, I don't think they tend to do as much research, but within economics, there's usually a lot of research you can do. A lot of it is surrounding different economic events. So I'm sure there's a ton of research happening right now with COVID, which would be really interesting to do. If you also have a research idea in your head, you can have like a professor sponsor you, which basically means they like kind of hold your hand as you do it and will tell you like, no, you're doing that wrong, or yeah, you're doing that really great. And they'll kind of do it that way. And you could basically get your own research job if you make a research job, if that makes sense. How do BU students communicate with each other? Can you elaborate on that question? I don't know exactly what you mean. I guess with being remote, a lot of students are like Zooming and texting and using social media and things like that. But on campus, I mean, people will just are together all the time. How competitive are finance job applications, those investment banking ones? Yeah, competitive. I applied to quite a few. Most of the big name sort of finance and investment banks that would probably come to mind when you think of this, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, things like that, they tend to do their recruitment process early on in the year. So that would be more like the fall semester before winter break and the holidays. So that would be another thing where you'd have to sort of be ahead of the deadline there. They are very competitive. They get tons of applications. Do target schools really matter then? I mean, yes. Apply to schools that you would like to go to, that you think you could get into, because you want to have backups if you don't get into reach schools. So I would definitely apply to sort of a variety of schools, like score-wise. Is there a big forum or group where students can voice concerns or talk about things? I'm assuming you mean specifically at BU. We do have a BU student government, and they are wonderful, wonderful people that serve as a liaison between us as students and the BU administration. And they're a very, very big student organization, if not the biggest one that we have. So getting involved in student government is a great way to be able to voice concerns and talk about things like that. Other than that, I mean, a lot of people will voice concerns, I guess, via email. Especially with a lot of the recent events that have happened with the Black Lives Matter movement and sort of the Asian American violence that's been happening. A lot of students have been doing email protests and email chains to the dean and to the administration. So that's sort of another way that students in general on BU's campus are very, very proactive people, which is really awesome. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to voice concerns and talk about things. Also, in a city like Boston, there's, I mean, if you're interested in specific protests or like social justice movements, like there's definitely a way that you can get involved in them. Does anyone else have questions? Absolutely. I think, Kimber, I think you're one of the ones who is interested in BU, so you can reach out if you're interested in talking. You guys had some really awesome questions today. Thank you so much. Yes, you're welcome. I'll put my, oh, no, oh, that's the wrong link. Anyways, my LinkedIn is just my name, and then I'll put my my email in here again if anybody wants to email me. I'm like always on my computer or my phone, so I promise I'll respond quickly.